Hi everyone, if we're meeting for the first time, my name is Paul Vojchehoske and welcome to the Real Estate Classroom YouTube channel where my mission is simple to help you pass the real estate exam the first time. All right, let's get going on our key vocabulary words here. First one I want to talk about is 233 of 300. It's the term estate. Now, estate for the purposes of the real estate exam means a person's or an entity's legal rights in property and possessions. It represents the quality of the ownership. And as this video goes on, I think it will make sense. 234 is freehold estate, another term that you have to know. I love these terms. Freehold estate. Now, the first thing to remember is a freehold estate means ownership. Its generic meaning just simply means ownership. We're not talking about the quality of the ownership. It's just that if someone has a freehold interest in a property, they have some type of ownership interest. It's an estate, remember, a person or an entity's ownership interest, and it's for an unidentified or an indefinite period of time. So you never lose your ownership unless you voluntarily transfer it, or maybe you stop paying your taxes, for example, and then there's an involuntary alienation that takes place. The point is, as long as you follow all the rules and you don't voluntarily transfer ownership, then your ownership interests is indefinite. It's indefinite. It never runs out. All right, so let's talk about some of the different types of freehold estates. There are four of them that I want to talk about. And the first one is what we call fee simple, or sometimes referred to as fee simple absolute. Now, if you, it's a freehold estate, and if you own your property fee simple absolute, that means you have complete and total ownership of that piece of land. And you can do anything that you want with that piece of land as long as it's legal and it doesn't violate any kind of easements or zoning or other laws. Remember those bundle of rights that we talked about in a previous video where you can lease it, you can will it, you can give it away, you can exchange it, you can sell it, you can put crops on there, you can mine for minerals, you can lease out your surface rights and sell your mineral rights. That is fee simple absolute. There is nothing that is defeating your ability to do what you want with your piece of property. Now, 236 is a form of freehold estate, meaning there's ownership, but it's called fee simple defeasible. And that means, what I want to say here is that the root word here is defeasible. There is something that is defeating fee simple absolute, the term that we just talked about. Now, there are two types of fee simple defeasible that we're going to discuss here. We have fee simple determinable and fee simple to a condition subsequent. The point is, it's a freehold estate, meaning there's ownership interest, but if it's fee simple defeasible, then something is defeating absolute ownership here. And so that's what you need to remember. So let's look at our first type of fee simple defeasible, which is fee simple determinable. I guess the best way to explain a fee simple determinable, or at least to explain the difference between fee simple determinable and fee simple to a condition subsequent. Let's say, for example, that you have a piece of property and the city of wherever you live, the city of Widgetville wants to put a park there. And you say, listen, I own this piece of property. I'm going to give it to the city of Widgetville because you can. You have fee simple absolute title. You can give it away if you want to. That's well within your rights. However, you want to make sure that it's going to remain a park. So you put conditions or something when you pass title. You put conditions on that ownership for that the city of Widgetville must adhere to. You have a couple of choices. The first one is called fee simple determinable. Now, what a fee simple determinable is I'm going to transfer title to Widgetville, and it's going to remain a park. But at the point that it stops remaining a park, whether it's a year later or 150 years later, then ownership automatically terminates with the city of Widgetville, and ownership of that property will revert to the remainderman, okay, or someone else that you designate in this agreement. The point is, under fee simple determinable is it's automatic. Ownership automatically reverts to someone or some entity. Nothing needs to be done. As soon as that property stops being a park, boom, it's done. Now, a fee simple to a condition subsequent, giving the same example that I gave you. Remember, with a determinable, the ownership automatically transfers. Under a fee simple to a condition subsequent, ownership does not automatically transfer, and the remainderman or whoever has been designated to receive that property, should there be a breach in that agreement by the city of Widgetville, that person or that entity has to go into court and obtain title. So determinable is automatic. To a condition subsequent means that someone has to go in and file suit and go in front of a judge to enforce the deed restriction. That's the two major differences. They're all freehold estates, meaning ownership, but there are some things that are defeating that fee simple absolute title. Life estate is another form of a freehold estate and a life estate. I did another video on that. And I'm going to actually put a link to that video right up here if you want to check out what a life estate is. But a life estate is simply where, for the best example I can give is I own a condo and my mom's getting a little bit older. So I'm going to transfer title, meaning I'm going to transfer ownership to my mom for the rest of her life. I'm going to give her a life estate. She becomes what's known as the life tenant. And then I'm going to designate my son as the remainderman. So at some point when mom dies, that title is that reversionary interest, that it's going to revert to my son. So that is a form of freehold estate. It's ownership. Mom actually has ownership, but there is some conditions that are defeating fee simple absolute title. Mom doesn't have absolute title. So that is what's considered a life estate, but it is considered a freehold estate. Remainderman, I just gave you an example of what a remainderman is. Remember, in the life estate, that's just the person that's going to be receiving a future legal title to a piece of property. And then 241, what is a non-freehold estate? Well, remember, anytime there are two parties to a real estate contract, a real estate deed, a lease agreement, something like that, everyone has a certain type of interest, legal interest. Some have ownership interest, some have a lease interest, okay? So non-freehold, remember, freehold estate meant an ownership interest. A non-freehold estate means there's a legal interest there, but it is not ownership interest. Now, one thing to remember is a non-freehold estate is sometimes referred to by the test as a less than freehold. It simply means there is no ownership interest. Let's say, for example, that you and I enter into a lease agreement. You are the owner and I am the tenant. You have legal title. You have fee simple absolute. That's a freehold estate. One of the legal interests that you have as the owner is the legal right of possession. So you and I enter into this lease agreement and you convey or transfer the legal right of possession to me. Now, for the remaining term of that lease agreement, I have a legal interest in your property. I don't have ownership interest, but I do have that legal right of possession. So that gives me what's called a leasehold, H-O-L-D, a leasehold interest in your property until our tenancy has ended. I have what's known as a non-freehold estate. I have an interest, a legal interest in your property, but it's called a leasehold estate. And the last word I want to talk about here is reversionary interest. I discussed it a little bit with the life estate, but a reversionary interest simply means that someone that currently holds some type of legal interest in property, at some point, it's going to revert back to someone else. A couple of examples that I have on your screen. A tenant has the legal right of possession upon the signing and the agreement of the lease agreement. But once that tenancy has ended, their legal right of possession, it's a reversionary interest. The legal right of possession is a reversionary interest, and that interest will revert back to the owner or the property manager that's authorized to work on their behalf when tenancy ends. A life estate. The life tenant has ownership interest for the remaining balance of their life, but once that life tenant dies, then that interest is reversionary, and it's going to revert back to the remainderman upon the life tenant's death. That is what we call reversionary interest. If you're going to continue studying, check out this video right here. All right, everybody, see you in the next video.